Hello, folks. My name is Larry Baker. I'm in Iowa City, Iowa. I am the self-appointed prose laureate of the state of Iowa, which means I appointed myself. And if you want a title, that's the way to do it. Just appoint yourself. I am going to talk today about my new book, Harry and Sue, which is a ghost story and also a love story, in which the main ghost is Marilyn Monroe and the other main ghost is Harry Chapin. And that's a connection I have with the person I'm going to introduce here very shortly. But this is my seventh novel, and my first one was a Hallmark movie in 2001. And in between that Hallmark movie and today, I have become America's most obscure but seriously undervalued writer. So with that, I'm just going to let you know that you are listening to the Never Gets Old podcast with your host, Mac Jackson.
I'm Duncan MacLeod of the Clan MacLeod.
My name is Ichabod Crane.
Name's MacGyver. Colonel Jack O'Neill, SG-1.
I am Batman!
Hello, I'm the Doctor.
So there's this man, he has a time machine. Up and down history he goes, zip, 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 getting into scrapes.
For years, and maybe more than that, right, Mac? But how long has it been? Has it been 6, 7 years ago?
Are you telling me that you built a time machine? Out of a DeLorean?
Hey, now wait a minute. Now wait just a minute.
Human beings were not meant to sit in little cubicles staring at computer screens all day.
I've got something for you.
Oh, merci, Sonor. Just one more thing, sir.
Oh boy.
Just like that. Bing, bang, boom.
At this point, I'd settle for the boom.
They'd love it here, don't you think?
This is what I'm saying.
And by the way, where is your podcast? Tell everybody that's here.
Welcome to the Never Gets Old podcast. The podcast of all we love in TV, movies, music, and comics. With your hosts, Mac Jackson and Nathan Shell. Subscribe to us on iTunes, Stitcher, Facebook, and YouTube. Donations at paypal.com, at macwjackson@comcast.net.
Listen to my Chapin songs, DJ saying that they're too long. His guitar may be silenced, but his soul goes on and on. Lord again, oh Lord again. His stories were like us, a beginning and an end, alone again. Now I listen in my room.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the latest episode of the Never Gets Old podcast. I'm your host, Mac Jackson. And today I get to talk to a longtime Harry Chapin fan and writer, Larry Baker, who has a new book out by Ice Cube Press called Harry and Sue. It's a love story, ghost story, but he gets to make a lot of references to Harry Chapin, which is always a good thing. Anybody who's listened to the music of Harmony Constant will hear that influence in there as well. So just quickly before we get chatting, I wanted to let everybody know that I am in other areas. I just wrote the next episode for the MacGyver SG-1 audio series, but it's a two-parter that I may get a guest voice on. And because it's a two-parter, I want to send it to them all in one chunk. So I'm going to write the second part of it before I edit it and act it out and all of that, the narration, all the fun stuff. So that's in the works. Also, if you'd please be so kind as to click like and subscribe to this channel on YouTube, that'd be great. If you're listening to this as audio only, please like and subscribe on whatever app you're listening to this on. It helps. I don't make a cent by it, but it helps more people hear it. And that's kind of the whole point of doing these podcasts, is to spread the good, share the love, put a smile on your face. And so the more people that get to see it and hear it, the better. Also, for those who are looking to see some great art related to both podcasts and audio series and anything, just fun pop culture stuff, there have been new designs that have been added to our shop. It's the Forever Adventure Network, Mac Jackson. If you type in that under TeePublic or Redbubble, I have 2 stores there. So if you please check those out, I'm sure you're going to find something. Man, they have everything. I mean, obviously mugs and t-shirts, but they have puzzles and bedspreads and shower curtains and stickers. So depending on what design you like, you can get it any size on basically anything. But check them out. Let me know what you think. Also, let me know what you'd like to see. If you're a fan of the podcast and there's a topic that we've mentioned, let us know. If you're a fan of the audio series and you want to see a particular art design, we have new art from Warlock Weirdo TV is his handle on Twitter. And he's been wonderful contributing brand new artwork that he comes up with on a basically weekly basis. So that's nice. You can support him too by going to our store and getting something. But in the meantime, remember, like and subscribe. Let me know that you're listening. Also, check out, just go to the Forever Adventure Network. Type that into Google. I got blogs and things to listen to and listen and hear, same thing, and see. There's something for everybody at any point during your week. Find what you like, let me know. You know, we have Facebook pages, we have Twitter, groups, group chats. Nate, co-host Nate, he did a Discord, which is still pretty new to me. I kind of send it out there. Yeah, join that, because that's basically an open forum too for anybody who wants to have a conversation on any particular topic. And yeah, I'll get back with you guys as soon as possible. In the meantime, please enjoy the fun conversation about music and writing and Harry Chapin with author Larry Baker. By the way, do you notice I'm wearing my Harry Chapin Songwriter Hall of Fame bracelet?
I have a drawer full of those around here somewhere.
I value it so much.
I have my Harry Chapin medal too.
Oh, lucky. Was that the one from '87?
No, this is the one that Jason sent me 80th birthday.
Okay, that's recent. I want to get one of those myself. Yeah. I saw that he was doing that and I'm like, ooh, you know what? Gimme. Because I didn't get the 87 one, the one when they did the TV special and had everybody come up and sing Harry songs. That was the Congressional Medal of Honor that they have out.
Yeah, 87, I was like not on the Chapin radar at all. I didn't write my first Harry Chapin book until, 2009.
Mm-hmm.
A Good Man. I think you read that one.
I have it. Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
and that's my favorite of all my books and my favorite character.
It's funny too, because one of the things I love about your books is, besides the story itself, anybody who is into Harry Chapin can go, I know what he's doing. I know that reference. I know, oh, he's talking about that town. Oh, that's,
Well, this actually predates Chapin, but when I just started writing fiction decades ago, one of the things that fascinated me was how other writers influenced me. So I started consciously lifting stuff, sometimes lines or symbols, and working them into my work. So if you never knew those writers, you would think this is just a seamless thread of a story. But if you know the writer, in this case, if you know Harry Chapin, you know that what I'm doing is actually paying some sort of homage to Harry. I mean, who has influenced me enormously over the years.
Oh, yeah. Well, preaching to the choir on that one. I got into him like everybody knew Cats in the Cradle, but for me, I was 15, and my father probably still has, his 8-tracks. And you're home for the summer, and I look over, and I see some of his 8-tracks. He's got Neil Young, he's got Phil Collins, okay, and Harry Chapin. I'm like, okay, the Cats in the Cradle. I think, I'll pop this in. Well, it was the Short Stories album.
Mhm.
Sold.
Yeah.
I'm like, wow, like it captures you. Besides, I mean, it's like all his stuff, so organic. You're listening to the guitar, and of course his voice we can go on about, but first time through, as a 15-year-old, I want everything that this guy does. I'm hooked. And it was an 8-track, so like for Mail Order Annie, it fades out right before the bridge, and then you gotta wait for it to click, and it fades back in. I didn't hear the full version of that until CDs came out.
Well, my introduction to Harry is very different because it was not his music. I'd never heard of this man, never heard a song by him. But I was watching a television interview, I think it was on PBS back in the late 70s or something. And this very serious narrator was interviewing Harry Chapin. I didn't know who he was, but the hair was out to here, of course. And as I was listening to him, he was talking about his, hunger efforts and everything else. I thought, this guy is for a musician, this guy is incredibly smart, incredibly articulate, incredibly charismatic. And he got me interested in the whole concept of social response. I mean, it was always there, of course.
Sure.
But it's sort of like, he says, here's what I do. And I'm more than a musician. This is what I do. And then I heard his music. And literally, I think the first song I ever heard of his was Taxi.
Oh, sure.
And you never forget that.
Right.
Or ever forget that. And then I watched another interview with him, and this is before I even got my first novel published. He gave me this insight, which is an insight about himself. He said, I'm a storyteller. I tell stories in my songs. And I thought, having now listened to everything he's ever recorded, they're all stories. They have plots and characters and twists, and they have everything that a good novel has in 3 minutes or 4 minutes. But then he said something that I found absolutely fascinating. He said, and to really write that story, I have to be in the story. And I thought, that's the experience I was just starting to understand about my own writing. You don't write from a distance. You are in that story with these people, and you know them and they know you. And it's a fascinating process. So my introduction to Harry was serious stuff first, and then music, and then stealing ideas from him left and right.
I have to back up. Listening to Short Stories was after my father played for me, because we were talking about, singer-songwriters or whatever, and he goes, because Jim Croce was the first musician as a baby that I recognized. And he goes, here's a song I want you to hear. And he plays Mr. Tanner. And I'll never forget sitting on the steps in our living room. And by the end of it, I'm crying.
Yeah.
Because if you listen, besides the song itself, the way Harry performs every time sells it, like the passion in his voice and the drama, and he's not overdoing it. He's accurate. And when it was over, the tears were flowing. I remember my father going, yeah, right?
Yeah, right. Well, that's also the one where is it Howard Fields comes in with the Tanner voice?
Yeah.
And it's like that contrast, it's Harry singing, Harry's voice, and all of a sudden, bang, this gorgeous voice, operatic voice comes in. And you've read my new book, so that scene, that voice is a key scene in my own book.
Yeah.
And Harry and Sue hear Mr. Tanner in that shop late at night, and and I think Sue says, "I just want our life to be as beautiful as that voice."
Yeah.
So yeah, it's astonishing to me how much influence he's had over my writing without me even consciously knowing it at the time. But obviously, when I look back, it's, yeah, I stole that. It's just the whole thing about the Sue character in my book being interested in hungry people. That's not Harry. So yeah, it's that sort of thematic stuff that Harry developed over time that is universal. So he's not the only person to have those themes, but he's a person who's able to inspire other people to understand those issues.
Right. And isn't it, and he really was one in a million, because he was so energetic and so go. You know, there were people would tell stories of, yeah, we love Harry, but gee, once you met with them, you were paying attention to him because he was so, you know, so enthusiastic about whatever music or his, you know, anything. And it's like
what Bruce Springsteen said about him.
Bruce Springsteen, perfect example. It's like dealing with a little kid. You're like, okay, I guess you're controlling it. Yeah.
He wouldn't shut up.
Yeah. But I love that. Like, that's the type of person that you go, you know what? It's not about, you know, it's not about you. And because you're so passionate, go for it. Like, well, I'll listen to whatever you have to say.
Well, I mean, I don't know how many people I've told this, but, you know, Harry died July of '81.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, July 16th, which is the day I'm having my first public reading of the book here in Iowa City, is going to be on the anniversary of that day. And I chose that particularly for that.
Nice.
So I remember back then, '81, Reagan was just in, you know, so depressed. And I heard the news about Harry being killed. And, you know, you're just devastated. And it's just like, this doesn't make any sense. Somebody like that is gone, just like that. But that's also the year that I finally stopped thinking about doing something politically. I ran for political office 2 months later.
Really?
I started my own political career, sort of like, would Harry say, when in doubt, do something.
Do something, yeah.
Do something, Larry. Get off your butt, Baker, and do something.
Yeah.
Now, here's the trick. I lost that election.
Right.
But I learned a lot. And 2 years later, I won my first term on city council here.
I've heard people say, Howie Fields was on the podcast, and he had said, you know, I think he would have run for office. I think Harry, had he still been around, he would have ran for some sort of office. My thought is maybe he would have, but I don't think he would have stayed. I think if he won, he would have done it for a term and then went, you know what I mean? Like, no, I think I'll stick to songwriting because I think I probably have more influence.
Yeah.
You know, right?
I don't see him having the discipline.
Right. Exactly.
Because one of the things I learned, and I'm at the lowest level of politics, you know, local city council politics, but one of the things you learn right away is you have to learn to shut up.
Not Harry.
To not sort of impose yourself on everybody. You've got to let them talk. And when you think they're just complete giant rectums, you've got to smile and, okay, well, let's work together. We can still work on something here. That's not Harry.
No. I think they would have been like, oh God, Harry's here. Like what they would say with Carter. You know, he'd show up to the White House. They're like, Harry's here again.
Yeah, one of my questions has always been, Harry at the time was always able to work with Republicans and Democrats. I mean, he tried not to be, you know, pro-party. And it was successful. I try to imagine him in today's environment.
Right.
Having to get people together to solve things. And how he would respond to a certain political party's agenda now, which seems antithetical to everything that he believed in.
Yep.
So he would be a very frustrated man.
I agree. I think we would have, I think he always would have made music. I think he would have been really motivated now, but I also think social media alone would aggravate the living crap out of him, because like my son is 14 and he's known obviously because of me, Harry Chapin, Mike Nesmith, all those that I love. And it's part of who he is. Well, now I taught him guitar and he's gotten really, really good. Well, you know, he's doing songs like Sniper and you know, the difficult Harry Chapin songs, because I just showed him how to pick. And he brought, you know, he's like me. He goes, I want you to listen to this great stuff because I think it'll change your life. And he did that with his teacher at school, who he loves. And the teacher came back to him and talked about Blues Man. He said, I don't know if Harry'd be able to get away with that song today. And because and even though it's a tribute to a black musician, a street corner musician, you know, somebody on social media would go, oh, that white guy's singing like a black guy, and would cause some sort of riff. And I think of poor Harry going, lighten up.
Well, you mentioned the song Sniper.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to imagine that song being played today without this backlash.
Right.
This knee-jerk Pavlovian, in a sense, understandable backlash, but at the same time, they're missing the point of the song. They're missing the point of the story. So, you know, he would have a very difficult time with, we're sitting here analyzing somebody with modern sensitivities. Is that a delicate way to say it? I don't know.
Right. No, yeah. I mean, that's Harry had all the heart, more heart than anybody that will ever know. But he also had the smarts to take some chances and stand in front of these people and go, I'm saying something important. I'm sorry if it makes you uncomfortable, you know, where all the social media people are just looking for their soapbox to stand on, like you said, with missing the point. So Jen Chapin was on the podcast, and she gave me a great bit of advice. She goes, don't listen to reviews on YouTube. Don't listen to reviews, you know, on any social media, because she goes, I've had people say nasty things about my music. I just laugh. Mm-hmm. And I could see her saying, if Harry didn't already know it, I could see her telling her father, here's how you handle social media. You know?
Well, you know, you remember there's a part of my new book in which the unseen radio talk show host, Harry Ducharme.
Yeah.
Who's man after my own heart. That's me in the book. Harry Ducharme is explaining the Songwriters Hall of Fame. And this is back in the sort of 1997.
Right.
And how they had some new nominees out. And, you know, Harry was not included. He'd been dead 16 years by that time. And then Harry Mason, the narrator of the book, meets the ghost of Harry Chapin, and they have this conversation. Well, how do you feel about this? He says, no big deal. You know, it's, you know, maybe 20 years from now, and I was thinking to myself, yeah, I did that intentionally, because 20 years later, he still was not in the Hall of Fame. It's like, let it slide. That's not the important thing.
Right.
I think it's important to people who love him.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Right.
It insults us more than it would have insulted him.
Mike Nesmith, before he passed away, they were talking about how, you know, the Monkees or just him by himself are not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame yet. And he put it brilliantly. He goes, look I love that you guys want us in there. That's what matters. The fact that we're not is because one or more people that are in charge of making that decision said no because of their own personal garbage. That is not the audience. They do not speak for the world. And I know that you love what we do, and that's enough.
Yeah.
And like, that made me feel a whole lot calmer too. And I agree. Harry saying that was like, I know that.
So I have a question for you. If I were going to write another book inspired by a Harry Chapin song, and I've already done Taxi and WOLD.
Sure.
What would you suggest I turn into a novel?
Oh, geez. Okay. Oh, just off the top of my head. I mean, I could go down a list, but off the top of my head would be A Better Place to Be.
Oh, yeah.
Right. I mean, that was one of his favorites. And that has so many, you know, or like, of course, now you have me going through what songs do I want to pick up and play right now? They Call Her Easy. Yeah. That has great, you know.
Mail Order Annie.
Mail Order Annie. I learned harmonica for just that song. I went to the music store. I was working a second shift. I thought, I want to learn it. I didn't know it was two harmonicas, because when you watch him play it live, He plays the beginning, then he puts it down, but he puts it either in his pocket or behind him. And then for the last part of it, he takes it out and plays it again. That's two different keys. Yeah, I didn't know. Because I'm playing it and I'm like, okay, and I sing the song, and then I go to play it in the end. I'm like, ooh, that's still low. Ah, darn it. So then I ran back the next day and got the next key harmonica.
Well, if you remember, one of the pleasures of me writing my book was like that line, "Anywhere's a better place to be." It's such a great line in general.
Yeah.
Worked it into the story in a completely different context. You pick up on it. Harry Chapin fans will pick up on it. But the line is universal beyond that song. And it has the same power. Even the dance band on the Titanic, I think, is another great line. Near my God to thee. And that's a percolating sound they do there. Hey, I have a complaint with you, Mac. Looking at this screen right now, and over your left shoulder is a big picture of a guy, David something and White Lad.
David Gray, White Ladder.
Okay, he's a wonderful person, I'm sure, but you could have had my picture there for the day at least.
But you're right here. Actually, that's a guy over here. I got Mike Nesmith and Harry Chapin in the frame. I got my own work and stuff above the audio series. But this would be like a third influence, David Gray, who you would know if his first big hit was like Babylon and White Ladder around 2000. Anyway, you'd know it if you heard it. We love him, my wife and I. Well, she worked at what was the music store? She worked at the Wall, but she also worked at Borders. Well, one of her cohorts who had, still worked there, he's like, guess what I got for you? Boom, boom, and he saved it after they were done displaying it. I got that one. I got one of those big square ones. I have, actually, you can't see it, but over me, I found, and you'll appreciate this, a vintage poster of short stories. New album, including hit single WOLD. But that is such a perfect cover to an album. I'm like, that's worth paying whatever they want on eBay for.
Was that an old LP album? What size is it?
Well, it's not the album, it's the poster.
I am much more impressed now. Yes.
Right? I mean, it's not the anybody could find the album eventually. This is a poster in mint condition, and it has that tan, like the way the rest of the album is. It doesn't, the border isn't white. It's like that same tan. And I found one of the last posters that he did of him for Sequel, big long poster. It's in my son's room now, of him leaning on the taxi door, and he's wearing pink socks and brown sandals. You could tell, I guarantee he ran in and did, okay, guys, what are we doing? Well, we got to get a poster. Okay. And whatever he was wearing was what they took the picture of, but it's a big one.
Well, I have gotten rid of almost all of my albums just by moving around so much and downsizing and everything.
Right.
But I got that album. I'm looking at, I got to get organized, man. I got to so I could, like, snap of a finger, I'll know exactly what I want to reach for it and pull it up and show it to you. Take my word for it. Lord. So I'm still waiting. The book doesn't come out till June the 1st officially. You got an early copy.
Yeah.
Starting to buy it now. So I'm really waiting for the response. This is what every writer's nervous about. Just like, one, how does everybody like the book? But basically, how do people who know Harry Chapin like the book? Really two audiences here, but that's one of them.
I'll tell you my thoughts. I mean, I love it besides all the little nuggets of Harry Chapin-ness, but I like that you don't make the ghosts cliche ghostly.
No, I know exactly what you mean.
You know what I mean? They're now, ooh, I don't know where I am. No, they're warm and comforting, and it's in particular with Harry. I never got to meet Harry, but Harry was very true to who he was, so that if you pay attention, you get the idea of who Harry Chapin was and how loving and giving. And I have friends who have met him, and the one said, you know, I was at an airport and I hadn't seen Harry. I saw him at a concert and met him afterwards once. Saw him 5 years later, and he called out to me and remembered me by name. He could have just kept walking, but he said, oh, hey, Mary, and like yelled over to her and said, come here, how are you? And, you know, like that kind of memory. Think of how many people he met a day.
And that's what I've tried to capture in the book.
Right.
Book.
Yeah.
I'm going to read you, if you don't mind, I'd like to read a couple of sentences from the forward of the book to explain the whole concept of ghosts.
Yeah, we got 7 minutes before this cuts us off, and I'll reconnect with you. But yeah, you definitely have the time.
Okay, so this is a work of fiction, and their resemblance to any person living or dead is purely coincidental. And of course, the above statement is true, but with a caveat. This entire story is filled with the ghosts of dead people who were once living. All of them have been dead for at least 40 years, some of them for over 100, but I bring them back to life. I have used facts about their lives that we all know, Harry. You will find bits and pieces of their actual words woven into the fictional dialogue I have written, lifted from multiple sources in the public domain. I did a lot of research just on Harry alone. My goal was to make their ghosts compatible with who they were when they were alive. But I have a theory. Being dead makes you a different person. You are you, but freed from being you. You have more power as a ghost, more insight about yourself than you did when you were alive. And that's what I'm trying to do with all of those ghost characters. They've got the advantage of looking at themselves.
Right.
So I have to imagine if Harry were dead, how would he look at himself?
Mm-hmm.
How would he understand his own life? That's
right.
Consistent with who he was in real life.
Yeah.
I mean, he wouldn't be a different, profound philosopher, and
no,
so he would be himself. So that's what I had to do in all of those conversations. And the one where he talks about the moment, you know, the narrator of the book, as you recall, is a taxi driver who's fascinated by the moment that people die. He wants all these ghosts to tell him about, what were you thinking when you died? The narrator's still alive.
Right.
And Harry Chapin gets to talk about that Long Island Expressway, that moment when he's about to die, what he was thinking. Now, I have to make that up.
Sure.
Imagine that. Because there are two kinds of ghosts in the story. The ghosts that knew they were going to die, like Will Rogers and Patsy Cline, and, you know, that plane is crashing. They are dead.
Yeah.
And then they got 3 seconds, 10 seconds. Harry never thought he was going to die.
Right.
That was mind-blowing. He thought he was going to live forever. He was too damn busy to die.
Yeah. And there's lines that I can't listen to now because or I can listen to it, but it chokes me up every time. Like, you know, Dancing Boy, you know, the time will come, my dancing boy, when our dancing days are done, when your daddy and his dancing boy will have dwindled down to one. Like, oh, come on. Like, you know, he does that in a bunch of his songs. And I know he's at peace with the idea of it, but the other side of it is, like you said, oh, no. I got more living to do. I'm not, what do you mean I'm in heaven now? What? No, come on. I was just getting started.
One of the pleasures of the book was when Harry, the ghost of Harry, starts talking about his family. He starts saying, you know, I'm supposed to be stuck in this theater and nobody gets to move. And he just breaks all the rules. And he goes to all these venues where he sees his family still alive, but they cannot see him.
Yeah.
And he talks about Josh and the dancing boy. He talks about, you know, Sandy and Jen and even Tom and Steve. You know, it's like they're there and they just can't see him. But he has the pleasure of still being in their lives, which to me is what a ghost ought to be, somebody who is still in your life.
Absolutely. And I wholeheartedly believe that. I can't imagine what heaven is, but I know it's beyond my imagination. But I guarantee Harry's with me. I know that. I know I pray at least he's proud of my contributions. When I play his music, I give it my heart every time. whether it's, you know, the first or the 1,000th time, if I'm playing one of my own songs or one of his, it's about the, not to sound cliche, but the holiness of that song. This is important. Every line matters. Every chord matters. You know, the way you pronounce each line matters. And I would hope that he is off to the side going,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
way to go. That's the, you know, remember how he would slap somebody in the band after a song, like, yeah, good job. I feel him doing that.
And I could see Harry would have the pleasure of seeing his children grow up and watching them.
Yeah.
Which, as a parent myself, I worry about, like, if I'm gone, what am I going to miss?
Right.
Well, if you're a ghost, you don't miss anything.
Right. Right. Right.
So
I think you still get all the heavenly rewards, but you also get the pleasure of being wherever you want to be at any particular time. Okay. So while we were sitting here waiting, I was thinking about, like, my son is, like I said, 14, and he's really ahead of the game. He's a leader among men, like I want him to be, and does great in school. And he's also a deep thinker, to the point where he's, you know, he's got the frustration that any Harry Chapin fan has, which is, don't you understand how great this is? Don't you get the complexity? You know, and I have to tell him, unfortunately, one of the things you learn as you get older is, as much as we think of humanity, not everybody gets what they're supposed to get. Like, there are, you know, he's trying to convert kids since he's, you know, so small, to listen to smarter music or, you know, more emotional stuff, where they're just not getting it. They don't have the complexity in their head to wrap their mind around Mail Order Annie or Taxi or, you know, any of that. So I said, here's the thing though. I'm 48. I still have problems getting adults to understand the wonders of Harry Chapin. You would think it's universal, like, you know, your mind explodes. Like, he's going, listen to that line in, pick a random Harry Chapin song. And he says, Dad, listen to that line. That has so much meaning besides just what the song says. It's so smart. And then it comes back around towards the end of the song. And I said, I know. And he loves that he can converse with me because he doesn't have anybody else to discuss these things with. And I had to tell him, that will never go away. You're always going to find people that you just want to shake and go, come on, right? Do you feel that? Do you face that?
Yeah, it is. I don't know. It's a matter of just getting older and older and older, and your experience builds up, and your understanding shifts over time, and you feel like you understand more and more as you get older, hopefully. And then you look around and you see, wait a minute, I thought we fought this fight 50 years ago. I thought this was settled. I mean, what sort of primeval force is still percolating out there that we cannot get a hold of and control? But here's the other thing, and I know you're going to feel this too, because you're still a young man, but you'll feel it like I do eventually. I think the most profound line that Harry Chapin ever wrote is, remember when the music came in wooden boxes. That line just tears me up. That is the essence of getting older. That is the essence of, like, I was young once. Things were bright, shiny, golden then. I mean, that's the human reaction summed up in one line. Remember when the music came in wooden boxes. And it's right up there in the Hall of Fame of songs about age. You know, it was a very good year when I was a young man. Anyway, you know those songs.
I was thinking of Simon and Garfunkel.
Yeah.
Time it was, and what a time it was. It was.
It is. And Harry was, what was he? He died when he was 38 or 39.
Right.
That seems like incredibly young to me now.
Yep.
Seems like there's like 30 more years of living to get to the line he wrote in his 30s.
Yep. Absolutely.
And if I can sort of write lines here and there comparable, to the power of those kinds of lines, I'm a happy writer. So this might be my last book. I'm old, hard to believe, this look is not that of a 50-year-old man. And I'm going to tell you a little story. First of all, you said you might have some questions about.
I do, but we'll get to it. You go ahead.
Okay, I was going to tell you how this story began.
Yes.
It's important.
Because I know a lot of your history, but the audience doesn't. So you go ahead.
Well, and I can tell you this. I think I may have told you in a private email or a Facebook message to you. I always wanted to write a story about this song, Taxi. So I knew, I'll have Harry, because it's a great premise. Boy meets girl, boy loves girl, boy loses girl, boy gets girl back. Yeah. You can't beat that as a plot. And I thought, well, that's a great, and it has some built-in hooks in there. But as I was writing it, there's something missing. I need to have the hook, which is what happens if you get your girl back and discover that you're going to lose her again. Mm-hmm. And how do you deal with that? And that comes out of a conversation that my wife and I were having late one night about a year and a half ago. I mean, I wrote this book in 6 weeks, which is a record for me. But my wife has some very serious health problems.
Sorry.
Did I tell you this at all?
Mm-mm.
Okay. Well, very serious. And we were talking late one night, and she told me what she wanted me to do in the future when a certain point comes in her life. And I won't go into too many details. You read the book, you sort of know where this is going. The health problem that my wife has is the health problem that Sue has in the book.
Right.
And this conversation begins, when it gets to that point, here's what you have to do. If you love me, this is a real conversation.
Right. This
is what you need to do. Figure it out. How you do it, I don't care. You have to do it. And I thought, I'm breaking. My heart is breaking. But I thought, I have to write that story, and that fits into Harry and Sue. Mm-hmm. And then the idea came, how do you deal with the concept of life and death? I used to run a movie theater in Oklahoma City called the Center Theater. I swear I saw a ghost there at one time. I thought, well, I'll have Harry in the rain, go to a theater, meet some ghosts. And then I start, once you create a ghost, you can do anything in fiction. I mean, once you break the rules about science. And I thought, well, let's bring other ghosts to life who help Harry, the taxi driver, deal with death. Because they're already dead.
Sure.
And to me, the most misunderstood person in recent American popular culture has been Marilyn Monroe. Mm-hmm. These recent depictions of her as the victim and have missed the point entirely about her. So what if I have Marilyn Monroe, the ghost of Marilyn Monroe, help Harry, the taxi driver, get his girlfriend back? And I thought, this is getting to be a good plot. And then if I'm going to do that, why not bring back the ghost of Harry Chapin, the ghost of Will Rogers and Mark Twain and Harry Houdini? And let's turn Harry Houdini into a villain, because he's a person who did not believe in ghosts in real life.
Right.
Let's bring it all back together. And so create this story of Harry getting Sue back together only to lose her again. And then I wanted Monroe to be very different than what, and that scene where she first shows up, which Tinkerbell comes on stage, she asks Carrie Mason all these questions, and then her voice changes. And I thought, that's the trick. She's two different people. She's the little breathy blonde who everybody knows, and she's a serious woman.
The Norma Jean versus Marilyn Monroe.
Privately, and that serious side of Marilyn funny, smart, a reader. But she's, she's the guide, like helping Harry Mason through. And I don't want to give too much away, and I'll stop right here, but there's a scene at the very end of the book where they're throwing a party for Sue. And Harry Mason, who's always been asking questions of other people. In fact, the original title of this book was "That's a Good Question," because he kept asking questions that nobody could answer for him. And Marilyn and Mark Twain have to explain to Harry what being dead means. And I'm not going to give it away, but you go back and it's like, Harry, this is what you want, but here's the truth. And then Mark Twain sort of sums it up. Mm-hmm. To me, that was, when I get to this point, what is anybody doing in life except trying to make order out of it, make sense out of it? And what the ghost of Marilyn Monroe and the ghost of Mark Twain do for Harry the Mason, the taxi driver, is explain to him nothing makes sense.
Right.
Nothing made sense when you were alive, and you expect it to make sense once you're dead. It doesn't. You just have to exist.
And it's a matter of priorities.
Yeah. So by the time I finished the book, bang. And also the very ending.
Yeah.
It was not, something was going to happen. And literally, as I'm writing the last page, I realized I can't end it the way I planned it. I have to end it exactly with what Harry Mason does for the book to make any sense, because it's a love story.
Right.
All right. That's it for me.
Isn't that funny? I mean, I do the same thing. I have in my head the way this is going to go. You start writing and you go, you know what? No, the characters they turned it. I wanted it to go here, but they turned it this way. I have to be true to the characters and just follow the path. I don't want it to sound mystical, but no, it's the truth. No. You planned on this, but the way it went, you go, no, this makes more sense. And then that could open up new avenues.
Yeah, every serious writer I've ever talked to in the last 30 years has the same experience.
Right.
I know where I'm going, and as soon as I get about 1/3 of the way there, maybe even sooner, I find I'm taking a little. I'm veering off a little bit, veering off, and all of a sudden, at some point, you get to this proverbial Robert Frost "two roads diverge in a yellow wood" thing, and take one of those that's going to change. But the thing is, it has to be absolutely consistent with what you've built up.
Right.
You have to, it has to make sense. So when the reader or the listener gets to the end, they say, yeah, I didn't expect that, but that's perfect.
Right. And that's, otherwise you're just spoon feeding them what they're already expecting.
You're just doing formula, generic,
And I find that, and this is true with your books, that I find that those little sidetracks give it layers. You go, oh, okay, we're not staying in the theater. Oh, we're going this way. Okay. Okay. Oh no, we're back at the theater. Okay. Okay, now, but boy, I'm glad we went on that little adventure. That makes more sense. And then by the end you go, oh, nice. Okay. So it all paid off. It wasn't just, because some writers will just do what they want because they wanted them to have this side adventure, but there was no point to it. So you could feel that greed of the writer as opposed to servicing the story. Mm-hmm.
I find writing is the most, people always complain, writing's hard work. No, it's not. It's the most fun job you'll ever have in your life.
Yeah. For me, I'll tell you, it's the, I want to go here, but I realize I have to do these little detail parts. I have to explain this. That's the hardest part, that and the editing, but like, instead of saying character walked into a room, had this conversation and left. Well, you got to talk about a little bit about the room, and you got to set up the scene by explaining maybe the color of the wall, or there was coffee on the desk, or that minutia is necessary, even though you're like, in my head, I see it, but now I got to explain it to the audience.
Well, there's something called non-narrative techniques, which is like you throw information in that doesn't seem to be, oh, okay, there's something on the wall over there. Okay. Early in the book, the manager, the old manager of the theater, Dwight Ferber, takes Harry around back and shows him, well, look here, I can get you your own little parking garage here. I can open this up. And remember, it used to be a tailor shop, which is a homage back to Harry Chapin as well.
Mm-hmm.
Because at the very end, that song is going to come back in the old tailor shop that's now a garage.
Yep. Those are all little bitty details that by the time you get to the end, they all become significant. There's a word for that. It's a literary term, McCoy's gun or something like that. Not McCoy, but I always think of Star Trek because it's a Star Trek character's name, but it's based on a paper where the article said, if you introduce something in the first act, it better pay off by the end. Well, yeah, the oldest reference to that, I think, is dramatists, 19th century dramatists like Chekhov and people like that. Chekhov's gun. That's the name of it. Chekhov's gun. Basically, if the first scene has a rifle over on the wall over the mantle, that's the one. Better use that rifle sometime by the third scene. You don't have to tell people it's coming, but you just have to set it up. Yeah. It's sort of like when you get to, flashback to my other book, A Good Man, ending of that, when Harry Ducharme is trying to save somebody, the whole book has been about this can't happen until somebody dies. Well, Harry Ducharme has this epiphany. Doesn't articulate it, but basically, he's the person that has to die. And it's sort of like, he's the one that saves, who the audience thinks is going to be the victim. Sure. It's not the victim. But that's all set up through the rest of the book. You know, sometimes I'm just so damn smart. I just impress myself. Well, it's the modesty that keeps you grounded. Yeah. Well, one of the questions I had, and this always fascinates me, is what was the spark for you that got you to be a writer? Because I know for myself, you know, typically most people just don't bother to do extra. They go to their job, they come home, they watch TV, and they go to bed, then they wake up and do it all over again, which is fine for those who wish, but being a student to Harry Chapin, why not do more? Why not be more? Why not contribute to the earth? Like Harry says, I so desperately want to make a difference. I feel that every day of my life, so much so that I have to force myself to take a break, and like this weekend I do nothing kind of a thing, which I'm proud of. If that's going to be my burden, hey, oh no, he tries too hard. Fine, let me do that. What was it in your life that just made you decide, I'm going to be a writer? I'm going to do this. I'm going to, and that's the other thing. You're always wondering, you said earlier, I wonder if people like this. I wonder if they're going to, and I get that. For me, I feel that too, but it's also, is anybody going to pay attention? Like I write music, I have singles out, and you're like, does anybody care? Anybody? Because I'm really working really, really hard writing this, performing this. Can anybody give me some sort of feedback? So it is very much a vocation to be a writer. And I was dying to know, what was it in your life that made you go, I'm going to take a chance here and do this? It's interesting because, and I'll refer back to Harry Chapin and the whole concept of being a storyteller. Because that's the way that's all writers begin that way. We all you're making stuff up. Sometimes you're just telling stories about yourself. Sometimes you're lying. You're making stuff up. From a very early age, I like to tell stories. Now, it's more complicated because as a writer now, and every writer also that I know is approached by other people to say, you know what? I got a great story. I got a great book. I got a great story. There's a novel. And we always want to say, then do it. Right. 99.9% of people with great stories don't write. Right. Okay. I started out telling stories, teenager,
I don't want to scare you, but I was very religious when I was a teenager. I did sort of amateur preaching and in the Baptist church, and nothing really formal, but religion, that's a form of storytelling. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
My first short story was published when I was 15. I wrote down a story basically about the crucifixion, religious. Well, there's a story, let's write about the crucifixion. But the trick was, I was tired of all the stories about the crucifixion, so I told the story from the point of view of a Roman soldier who was standing behind the cross, describing what's coming towards him and the crowds and what's going on. And the story was called A View from Behind the Cross. I still have that typewritten manuscript, when I was 15. So I started doing short stories. I was president of my literary club in high school, stories. I was president of the senior class, politics. I was president of the Future Teachers Association, a future teacher. Everything I ended up in life I began in high school. Again, writing stories, published short stories for 30-something years. But as I was teaching history class in a sort of slow spell there, I would say, let's take a break. I want to tell you a story. And I would tell my class a 3-minute story about something I did in the movie business.
Sure.
The dead woman on the toilet story,
right,
from Flamingo, or the fireworks setting off funeral homes, stuff that I used to do. And they said, God, Mr. Baker, you ought to write a book about all that. Well, it's like, well, duh. I'm telling the story. I've been writing short stories. Make a novel. Expand it out. Because, short stories the rule is you got to get it done in 30 pages or less. What if you had 300 pages? What if you had a sniper length versus a 3-minute length for another song? You could tell a different story when you've got the time. And the first story I told was about the movie business and my adopted children. Korean kids raised by crazy Southern parents in the South. That's us.
Yeah.
And that wasn't a great leap. But then the second book was about, my political career. Wasn't much of a leap. The third book was A Good Man.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I really became a serious writer, a creative writer, in the sense that I'm not relying on my life for material. I'm having to think about it, create it. And so here's some basic ideas. Here's a plot. Here's some characters. Put them in a situation. Write. And here's the thing. Boy, when I was writing A Good Man, I was going to write about a black preacher, an Elmer Gantry character. I said, all the phony evangelists are white. Let's do a black phony evangelist. And that, if you remember that book, there's a scene where the black preacher shows up during the middle of a hurricane.
Yeah.
That was going to be the opening chapter, and the black preacher was going to be the main character. Well, he's in a radio station talking about the second coming. He needs somebody to talk to. Ta-da! Well, Harry Chapin, he's got an old disc jockey. What if that disc jockey ends up burned out at the end of the line, late night talk show host? I threw Harry Ducharme in. Harry Forster Ducharme.
Right.
Harry Chapin's middle name.
Yeah.
Okay. And then when I finished that chapter, I figured, no, that's the story. It's not the black preacher. It's the drunk radio talk show host. And out of that becomes a completely new book. That first chapter becomes a chapter in the middle of the new book. I got to create a life for Harry Chapin, Harry Ducharme, I'm sorry. And the pleasure of that, of creating that, compels you to do it again. It's like a drug.
It really is. It really, really is, because you're like, all right, I just finished that. Like for me, I'm doing the episodic, I have to write the episodes, and then you got to record it, and then you got to edit it. And it's a lot of work. Well, then I go, all right, give yourself a break, do a couple podcast episodes, relax. And then you go, nope, gotta go. I gotta do the next. I'm ready to start
I've never understood the concept of writer's block.
Right. Me
When I
neither.
hear people, writers, oh, stoned up for months and months. What the
Right.
What's wrong with you?
Agreed.
There's no such thing as writer's block.
Nope.
There's such a thing as lack of time
Sure.
and opportunity, but not writer's block. There's never a damn.
Right. Right.
My
If you go, I want to write this particular thing and I can't think of how to do it. Okay, but that's not writer's block. There's so many other things you could be writing about. You know, they always do. That's always a plot in movies and TV where it starts off with the guy who had one great novel, and then he's like, my publisher wants me to write the next one. I can't think of anything to write about. I'm like,
I keep saying every book is my last book. My last book, Wyman and the Florida Nights, that's my last novel. You know, a year later, I have Harry and Sue.
right.
I don't know what the future is going to hold. I've got stuff here. I'm doing a little tinkering. My problem now is time and opportunity. It's not ideas.
Sure.
I really am wrapped up with my wife's health right now, and
Sure.
it's just emotionally and physically draining.
Draining, sure.
But boy, I got a story up here. I really want to get out eventually.
That's why you have me excited at the idea for something based off A Better Place to Be, because that has so many layers to it. Because all you're hearing one story, but when you listen to A Better Place to Be, you want to hear about the little midnight watchman. You want to hear his background. You want to hear that, you know, the woman who he takes home. You want to hear her whole story and the woman he ends up with. Like that alone is the brilliance of Harry, because you're like, I love it so much, but you never feel satisfied completely. You never go, well, he told the story.
Yeah.
I guess that's it. You're like, no, there's chapters that he's leaving out that, golly gee, I wish he was able to go back to.
I don't know if you will agree with this one on Harry and Sue, but that idea of stuff left out. One of the reasons I named one of the characters Corey, it's like, whatever happened to her?
Right.
Sort of, here's the story, but boy, she disappeared. Where'd she go?
Yeah, because in the end, he's like, I go to, you know, Corey's coming. The guy takes the place of the old man. Okay, but tell us about her. What made her so magical?
Yeah.
Why was she, you know, why was a song written about her? Right?
It's an extraordinary process of editing and sort of making choices. I got this direction I'm going, and boy, I sure love to go this way. More with what's it? I'm forgetting my name. Peyton Davis, the mystical young theater manager who exists somewhere. Nobody's ever seen him, but he's okay. I don't know where that came from in my head, but it sort of made sense at the time. And he's in love with Corey. Well, Corey has to be another reference back to what's her name, but it's a different kind of Corey. And she's a stripper named Corey. And boy, you've got all these stories going on. I mean, in my book, the stripper herself is a separate story.
Right.
The little girl who's down at her luck at a strip club. So it's you know, it's almost as much fun as writing a book as talking about it, I think.
Good. Well, that's the whole point of the podcast. It's to have intelligent conversation with good guests.
Well, I'll give you intelligence on your part, and I'm just out there just throwing stuff up. Spaghetti on the wall. Let's see what sticks.
So I'll tell you, I really hope this isn't your last book. I know you're saying that, you know, it might be. Well,
you know what? If to be really crass, if it doesn't sell, it's going to be my last book with this publisher.
Sure, that's true. How did you find a publisher too? Did you had to shop it around?
This one has done the last 6 of my books. My first publisher was Knopf, Random House. I mean, that paid my bills for the rest of my life. My first novel. I mean, they turned it into a Hallmark movie. You know, that book paid off my debts, put my kids through college, set up my retirement. After that, the drop off was like that. And so the irony is that I got so much money for my first book in advance.
Sure.
But it didn't sell enough copies to earn back the advance. And my first publisher was reluctant to take a chance the second time around because it didn't perform as much as it should have. It was a bestseller, but for what they paid me, it should have sold a lot more.
Sure.
So I was sort of drifting for a while, and then I saw this small independent press here in Iowa, and I had A Good Man written, and I said, "Would you?" He had never done a novel before. He was just nonfiction, environmental stuff. 30 years in the business, never done a novel. He says, "Well, tell me about it." I sent it to him, and he read. He says, "It's great. I don't do novels, you know." I said, "I only have one requirement. I have a picture of me and my son on a beach in Florida. That's the cover of A Good Man. That's me and my 2-year-old son." I said, "I want that as the cover. That's the only requirement." And he says, "No problem." And so this guy puts together these gorgeous books.
Yeah.
I mean, Harry and Sue is a great looking book.
Yeah.
Just physically, you turn the pages, you go to the pictures at the back, the epigrams, the whole bit, the cover design. I gave him a picture of that Marilyn Monroe in a taxi cab, and the driver who looked sort of like
Harry. Yeah.
Thing. And I said, "I want that as a cover." And I said, "But I want it to look like a movie poster." And so he sent me back a rough draft of something. And I said, "Well, let's do this, let's do that." And we eventually turned this into a movie poster, a cast of characters, stars, footlights, the whole bit. And all of the books that he's done for me, he has let me design the covers, which is one of the reasons I like this guy so much.
Sure.
And he's very flexible and will do whatever it takes to make the writer happy, which is an important consideration.
Absolutely.
The problem is it's a small operation. So unless the writer is willing to go out and promote like hell his own work, that book is going to sit there.
Well, tell everybody where they can find it.
Starting June the 1st, it's going to be on Amazon, but I'm telling people to go to the website of my publisher, Ice Cube Press. Ice Cube, word ice, word cube, word press. That's that way you get a signed copy. IceCubePress.com, signed copies available. And that's the way he makes money. Amazon doesn't make crap.
Sure, I know.
And, you know, you buy a book on Amazon, that's great, appreciate it, but
you get a percentage.
Royalty off that is not measured in dollars; it's measured in cents.
Right, exactly. I know it.
So,
Trust me.
Ice Cube Press is where they need to get the book, and it's Harry and Sue.
Harry and Sue. Well, excellent. Listen, I know our time's going to run out. I could see the timer ticking down. But in the future, you know, next book, if I pray that you do, when you make it, and when you're up for it, you can come back on and we'll shoot the bull some more and talk about Harry. And because, you know, two of us, I knew just by our conversation on Facebook, I'm like, man, we could talk forever just about Harry Chapin.
We could.
Right.
Well, let me leave you with this. I have an idea for a new book. Harry Chapin fan podcaster.
Like it. I like it.
So what are the plot complications I can work in there on that?
Oh, let's see. Trying to make sure people hit the like and subscribe button to the podcast or buys his music that he's written himself. That would be nice.
That's too easy. Here's what I want you to do, Mac. We get off the air here. You think about it 24 hours, and then you send me a private message revealing your darkest secrets.
Yeah, okay. I just to watch him die. I
actually am working for. Yeah. This is front for. Oh, it'll be fun. So I appreciate you taking the time to talk to me, Jason.
Oh, my pleasure. I appreciate the friendship through the years, and I'm always proud to wear my bracelet and talk about your books.
Great.
So
tell your friends and have your friends tell your friends, and you know, my kids still need the money, so it's all going to them.
All right. Well, you have a good day.
All right. Thanks a lot, Mac.
Talk to you later, buddy.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
The Never Gets Old podcast is part of the Forever Adventure Network and made possible by your donations through Patreon. If you'd like to help us out, please go to the Forever Adventure Network by Mac Jackson on Patreon and help by subscribing, rating, and reviewing wherever podcasts are heard. We also have a Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube channel. The show's music is by Harmony Constant and available wherever music is sold. Thanks for listening, everybody. And remember, stay excited.
The Forever Adventure Network. Welcome to the adventure.
Has MacGyver inspired you to be kind and creative? Has Jack O'Neill inspired you to be a leader and be sarcastic? Well then please check out the MacGyver podcast, where we celebrate Richard Dean Anderson and all of his iconic characters. We have life stories, episode reviews, and great conversations with actors and the people behind the scenes. We also have merchandise, blogs, art, and so much more, all through the Forever Adventure Network. Join us today, and remember, stay creative, everyone.
The Forever Adventure Network. Welcome to the adventure.